Alright, YouTube, there's another threat to liberty out there. This is why I can't support, like, even though Trump's better than the other contestants within the GOP primaries that he crushed, this is why I can't vote for the mainstream parties anymore. There are too many shitty bills coming down the pipeline, for this time from the FBI, mostly from the NSA. The FBI generally does its work and does it well compared with the retard, inept cretins at the NSA. This time, though, they're once again seeking more powers of surveillance in order to circumvent the U.S. Constitution. They essentially, a bill passed by the legislature can't circumvent the Constitution. We've seen this before. It's like when the states try to ban gay marriage. The Supreme Court's made it clear, well, you can't actually do that because of the 13th Amendment. Likewise, the right to privacy, listed in the Constitution, not given by it, but enumerated by it, cannot be circumvented by any bill of Congress, but Congress persists over and over again. They tried this with stuff like SOPA and PIPA and CISPA and all of this other bullcrap. Now they're trying to fast-track a bill through the Senate that will expand warrantless surveillance, allowing data to be collected on basically anyone for any reason by the FBI and its affiliates. It was a 14-to-1 vote to fast-track it through to a full vote. Unfortunately, that means it's likely to go through. One of the biggest problems I've had with the Republican Party for some time has been their insistence on this weird and, I believe, completely wrong belief that if you simply give some government bureau more power to regulate people's internet traffic and spy on their phones, that somehow it's going to magically stop terrorists from getting into the country, while at the same time they're complete cucks and won't actually check people at the border. Well, that's retarded. That's the exact opposite of what should be done. If you prevent this kind of shit from coming here in the first place, you don't need domestic surveillance. The fact is that all of the layered domestic surveillance we've already got, which is almost all warrantless. A FISA court's not an actual court of law. It can't legally issue warrants, and yet somehow they issue blanket warrants, and nobody sees a constitutional issue with this. I don't know whether this is because people are just too retarded to understand what a court of law entails, or whether they're just ambivalent. They're afraid to be blamed for the next terrorist attack, even though we've had Garland and San Bernardino and Fort Hood and the Boston Marathon bombings and stuff. Well, the NSA was in many cases conducting some level of surveillance on these people involved. The FBI knew, for instance, about Tsarnaev. They knew that he had been radicalized a couple of years before the Boston Marathon bombing. They already conducted surveillance on him. He had already been spoken to by Russian officials when he was becoming radicalized over there in Chechnya, and yet the FBI didn't catch this, didn't do anything about it, and the bombings ended up happening. Well, then what the fuck is this going to do? All this does is allow them to take every text message and phone call and email and a list of every website and all of your bank account information, everything, and just compile it in a database that'll never be secure. We've seen time and time again, government servers are not secure. We'd like to believe that they have some super secret cyber technology that allows them to lock it away so that nobody can ever get to it. And yet the Chinese hack these things all the time. The Chinese hack government agencies, they hack corporations that work with government agencies, and now all of this shit is going to be stored on databases. Much of it already is anyway, and it's completely vulnerable to hackers. It's vulnerable to some domestic hacker who's in it. You know, they're not there to steal your identity beyond what profit they can gain from it. They're not actually going to screw around with your life for some personal vendetta. They just want to get their quick grand or something. Or the Chinese, they want your trade secrets, and they want to get the skinny on people that maybe don't like China so they can, you know, fuck up their lives or something. This happens all the time. The Russians do it too. The North Koreans are capable of doing it. So why are we telling the government, oh yeah, in the interest of security, we're going to take all of our data, put it on unsecured servers, because that's where it's fucking kept, basically, because the Chinese can get into it anyway, and you let some other foreign entity grab up all that data. That makes us feel secure. Why, in what realm of reality does that make anybody feel more secure? So yeah, this should be defeated, but it'll be like the other cybersecurity bills. Ultimately, what will they do? They'll have Rand Paul and a few others will stand up there. They'll try to stop it. They'll say this infringes this part of the Constitution. This won't do anything. This is ineptitude. It's going to cost a lot of money. It won't save anybody. It makes data less safe, not more safe. And what'll they do? Some idiot like Mitch McConnell or Nancy Pelosi or Obama himself will get up there and with a very dour face, they'll just say, oh, 9/11, and then everybody will keel over and the opposition will magically disappear. Because apparently the fact that 9/11 happened, despite the government's it was because of the government's disinterest in keeping us safe in the first place. Giving them more power will make us safer. That's not the way that reality works. The reality is that more levels of government and bureaucracy do not keep us safer. They never have. They never will. Otherwise, we should have seen as more and more layers of government have been added over the decades, for literally a couple of centuries now, you would expect that things would be a hell of a lot safer, like there'd be rounded corners everywhere and no crime by now, if the government adding more power unto itself kept us safer. Instead, we get in war after war, we suffer through attack after attack, militants are everywhere in the world, crime is still high, even though it's at a 40-year low, it's still higher than it was like in the Wild West days. Obviously, the lack of government made people safer. When there's less government, people taking care of shit themselves, people are oddly less likely to get killed by one another, less likely to get bombed, less likely to get screwed in some manner or another. Things were actually more peaceful back when you had one fucking sheriff and a deputy with a shotgun in your town than now when you have like thousands of riot police with body armor and machine guns and so forth. It just doesn't work. What we're doing clearly doesn't work. This won't help either. Telling the FBI, yeah, you can be the NSA's buddy and do all the cool spy versus spy bullcrap that the NSA does, isn't actually going to stop the next terrorist attack. It's not actually going to stop the next so-called hate crime. It's not going to stop anything. All it's going to do is justify them submitting a bigger budget for the next fiscal year and telling people, oh, the Constitution, we need to temper it in the name of security, even though losing our liberty hasn't brought us any added security. That's the funny thing. This is what Benjamin Franklin should have said. Ben Franklin, in a moment of startling wisdom, for he was a wise man and used to have orgies while he was extremely drunk, with both men and women, by the way, some Christian he was, said, those who would give up essential liberty for security deserve neither. What he should have said is those who give up essential liberty are fooling themselves because it's not going to make them more secure anyway. Really, you should just buy a gun and you're probably a lot more secure than waiting 20 minutes for the police. You should safeguard your own electronic systems, not expect them to be stored in some cloud by a corporation that I'm sure you think that because they have some family-friendly logo that they're smiling all the time and they're very helpful on the phone, and so you trust them with your data. I wouldn't trust them with my data. I try to limit the scope of my personal info. Everyone knows my actual name on the web. I can't really avoid that. That ship sailed many years ago. That's fine with me. But you think I put my social security number into any fucking website I happen to stumble across? It's just not going to happen. I don't have a credit card. I don't have a functioning cell phone I don't have a smartphone. I have an old flip phone that I never carry with me when I can help it because cell phones suck. That's the way to safeguard your privacy. Ultimately, if you're using the internet, the big thing is, oh, well, if you're using the internet, you have no expectation of privacy because anybody can get into it. That's a bunch of bullcrap. There's a difference between government and hackers. A hacker is unless they're employed by a bureaucratic agency, which often they are, the government is held to a different standard. The government is actually supposed to be at a disadvantage when it comes to accessing your personal info, as opposed to some private organization that you're voluntarily doing business with. And even then, there are plenty of protections that people should definitely expect, like you wouldn't expect. You go to a motel, and without any reason whatsoever, the motel manager can come in and rifle through all of your stuff and just, go through all of your papers and check through your computer. That just doesn't happen. Well, the government certainly has even less right to do that. So if you would expect a private business, that you would expect some decency from them, privacy, you would expect to be left alone, why wouldn't you expect that of the government? Governments throughout human history have caused a lot more chaos, almost always the cause of war, and killed a lot more people, often in the name of justice that never actually happens, than any corporation dumping raw sewage, let's face it. In fact, the government dumps more raw sewage than any corporation does. They've done more harm than any criminal syndicate. They've done more harm than any group of crazy jihadists fucking goats out in the desert. They've done more damage than anything, and yet for some reason people say, oh, well, you can trust Uncle Sam. I can remember when Bush was the president, the same people now saying, oh, well, cyber surveillance is just fine with us because we want to be kept safe from those uber scary bearded people over there. They were the first ones in line when Bush wanted to look through your library records saying, hell no, we won't go. We're not going to tolerate that. Well, where are your outcries now? Are you that fucking cucked that you're not willing to say anything? I am. I'm making this video. That's why I have to support the Libertarian Party. Because, I mean, enough is enough. It's not helping us. It's not making us safer. It costs a lot of money. And we've got enough problems with dedicating what government resources actually work at all to a bunch of bullshit finding a needle in a haystack when we could dedicate it towards actually doing some good. If we have to have the necessary evil of some of these bureaus like the FBI, we should at least let them do something that's worthwhile. Actually stop a terrorist instead of going through people's bank accounts would be a good damn start. That's about all. Peace out.